In the culture wars, there are no winners, just podcasters. Only a few are willing to risk their lives in the face of some of the dumbest ideas to have ever captured human civilization. Every week, we, Megan Daum and Sarah Hayter, humbly accept this mission to bring you conversations that are equal parts stunning, brave, and not fact-checked in real time. Welcome to A Special Place in Hell. Sarah, if you are sober enough to talk about it, we should talk about the debate, among other subjects. We're going to talk about the debate. We're going to talk about Austin, Texas, and we're going to talk about killing animals. So we've got a lot in store for people today.
Yeah.
We're recording this on September 11th. The debate was last night. I did not watch it in real time. I was out to dinner. So what did I miss?
Well, you did watch it though, eventually, right?
I watched I watched around it today.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think you missed anything. I didn't watch it as it was happening either, because I have an early bedtime now that I'm a full-time mom, not by choice. But I get up in the morning super early before everybody else gets up. And that's when I do work / listen to debates.
Okay.
So I already heard what everybody thought about it, which is that she won. Kamala Harris won.
Yeah.
And I think that was more or less my impression. And that was kind of what I had imagined would happen going in. I always thought that Kamala would not do well if she was next to JD Vance, or she might have a tougher road ahead of her if she was next to him, because it might get more detailed than what she was comfortable with or prepped for. But I always thought she would do well next to Trump. And it was a mistake that I saw that the right initially really underestimated her. And I always thought that was a mistake. She was excellently prepped, I have to say. I mean, excellently prepped. Everything was rehearsed. You could tell that it was rehearsed, but it was, she must have spent so much time doing it. And it was, there was enough, material that she had worked with that she could really play around with it and put it together in a neat and coherent way. And she had a couple of things that she really wanted to hit home. The abortion section, there was like 5 minutes of her talking about abortion and telling these personal stories, and it was very emotional. And it was, I thought that was the best she could have possibly done.
What kind of personal stories about abortion?
It was like, it wasn't personal, like to her.
Not
but
shout
it was
your
like,
abortion.
It was like, women, I know a woman who's pregnant and this happens and that, and then she can't get, like that's a story we talked about that went viral a little while back. She was able to really personalize the issue.
Okay. Miscarriage, Dad, you mean?
Yeah. I don't think she talked about that particular story, but she talked about like similar kind of scenarios. And I thought that was very effective. And I don't know. What can you say? And what can you expect out of this guy, right? Like, he is unpreppable. You have to.
That should be right. He's invincible and unpreppable. Yeah. Right.
And that, there's something about the fact that he is authentic. Whatever he is showing you in that moment, it was not rehearsed, because nothing's rehearsed. He was scrolling Twitter the night before and he saw something about Haitians eating cats, and then he had to get it out there. It was just, it was a lot of vomit from him. You know what I mean? Like, he just had to get it all out there. And he was starting to get irritated as the conversation continued. And you could see that he started getting very yelly. It was very old man vibe. And I think that that's not going to be an amazing look for him. Next to Biden, he had energy and he was coherent. Next to Kamala, he's the old man.
Right.
And you really see it. And he's never been coherent, even at the best of times. A lot of people are saying that he really flubbed. He really failed. I don't think this was the worst that I've ever seen him. It was just compared to how well prepared she was, he came across looking like an idiot.
How would you compare it to his debates with Hillary?
I actually thought kind of like the first debate. I can't even remember now
Well, there was the debate
which.
where he hovered over her, and I feel like
Yeah.
that was the second debate.
Yeah, not that one, but I think the first one he did a little better or something. But now my memory's all screwed up.
Right.
I have to say, Kamala is just so much more likable than Hillary. That has always been true, and I think it came through here, where she was just more likable, and that played really well in her favor.
I mean, I was just talking about this earlier. Like, what is it that makes her more likable? Like, forget the baggage, forget the Bill Clinton baggage, all that kind of stuff. Just in terms of comportment, temperament, the way she presents herself. I'm like trying to isolate what it is. Is it actually like a vocal pitch thing? Is it a body language thing? Is it an appearance thing?
You think it's a vocal? It could be.
I don't
She has
know.
a nicer voice. She has just like kind of.
I mean, it's not like markedly nicer, but Hillary had that kind of school marmish tone. And I always,
Kamala also gets that tone though.
I know
she does. Tone. She does do it too.
But she has a kind of like funkier, younger. She has a more youthful quality, Kamala.
Because she went to a historically black university. That's where she got that from.
Because she says skiwi. Beep. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I am hopeful. Like I said in the beginning, but let's face it, we're not even talking about policy at this point. This is an election that has nothing to do with actual positions or policies. This has to do with personalities. We are electing people to be figureheads. So let's just establish that, I suppose. If she would just stop cackling and move to the center and act normal, I could be okay.
That's what she's doing. That's what she's doing. I feel like that's exactly what she's doing. She's moving to the center. She sounds like a Republican, frankly. Like the kinds of things that she was saying. It was Obama-esque, but a little bit more to the right, actually, than he was. She's disavowing her former, leftist self. I think, okay, here's my theory about why she comes across better than Hillary. It's that with Hillary, there was a real Hillary, like there was a real woman, and that real woman put on a mask every time there was a camera in front of her, and you could tell she was faking it. Like, that's not how you really feel.
It's painful.
It's not what you really want to say, and you're not saying what you really want to say. You're trying to manipulate me. You're trying to get me to feel a certain way, and I can tell that you're not an amazing actress. You don't really believe this. With Kamala, the benefit of having a candidate that has no substance to them, like there is no real Kamala, so she can be whatever you need her to be in that moment.
Yeah,
and it sounds as authentic as anything else. Because there is no, there's no there with her.
No, she has been cast in a role. The Democratic Party is central casting, and this is the person they've cast.
And she's good at it. She's good at just sounding like when she stands there, she believes it. And maybe she actually does, because she doesn't really have a lot of deeply held principles. And I think
she's a trial lawyer. I mean, she's used to making an argument. That's her job.
Yeah.
Whatever her job is, whatever she's tasked with, she's going to try to be as persuasive as possible. And you have to believe it in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So you believe what she's saying, the way that she's delivering this sort of more moderate message, she's doing it in such a way it's as believable as her kind of woke self was. That also felt like a little like really, you believe this, but it's just this broad, she can be whatever she needs to be in that moment. It never feels deeply authentic. It never feels inauthentic. You know what I mean?
It's serviceable.
It's everything. It's nothing.
I know. I feel so sorry for Hillary, though. It makes me so sad. I mean, she must just have steam coming out of her ears. It's so
steam
unfair.
Coming out of her, whatever. Listen, we're a Trump country.
That's like a Gwyneth Paltrow thing, right? Maybe she goes to Goop and she steams, where. No, I mean, just like, I know, whatever we feel about her, like, she wanted it so badly and she worked so hard. And she's such a casualty of her generation and her circumstances. And I mean, to see like just to work so hard in this arena and then just see it turned into a joke across the board.
Yeah.
And have people take that joke seriously. And suddenly that, she's breaking the glass ceiling and the girl boss and like it's to see something that is clearly a joke being taken earnestly by the majority of the population must just like absolutely sting.
Yeah. And Kamala actually might win. And that would be another.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
like
humiliation that this,
I wonder if Hillary secretly wants Trump to win. I mean, on some level,
I kind of would.
I
because
get
it's
it.
like, see,
nobody can beat him.
No woman can, nobody can, but also no woman can. That's the problem. Yep. And that's why I lost. I feel bad for Hillary. I have so many thoughts about Hillary still, but I think if she was her true self, unapologetically, she would have won. Like, if there was never this girl boss thing, she's just a boss. You know what I mean? Like, she's just actually kind of like,
she's not a
abrasive.
girl.
Yeah, she's abrasive. She's not a girl. She's just
shrill.
A boss.
Are you saying she's shrill?
Well, you remember that time where she was the Secretary of State and she had these like black sunglasses on. She would wear these like she had this badass vibe to her. She
still goes around like that, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she softened up her image in order to run, and I think that was the mistake. The mistake was showing up on, night, the TV shows and being like, I'm a woman, and
well, right. Her handlers were giving her bad advice.
Yeah, I think she should have been like kind of a hard ass the whole time, like herself, her actual self, and people would have admired her for it, and they would have liked her.
It's just been like that from the beginning. I mean, when she went to Arkansas, she's the first lady. I mean, she was from the North. She had no sort of, I don't want to say business down there, but she was just so out of her element. And then in order to like enable his career, she had to make herself into something else, this kind of Southern wife. And I mean, obviously she had a law career, the Rose Law Firm, et cetera, but she had kind of a Southern accent. Remember that when they first came on? Well, you don't remember, but I do. But they first came on the scene in 1990 or whenever that was, 91. And she was talking like this. And,
oh no!
Don't tell me. I'm not. No. When that whole cookie gate, like I'm not. People were saying, how can the president have such a career woman as a wife? How are you ever going to be the first lady? And she'd say, I'm not just like Tammy Wynette standing by my man. Because all these accusations were coming against it. I'm not just out there baking cookies like a nobody, this kind of thing. And then she got totally piled on for that. You're alienating all the women out there who bake cookies. I mean, that was sort of like proto-deplorables, right? No, she had a fake accent, even though she's completely from Chicago. And when she talks normally, she talks,
Okay, so like that was
Chicago.
The risk was she would turn people off as well. But look, Trump does that. Trump turns a lot of people off, but also there's something about the fact that he doesn't seem rehearsed that people also really like. So I think Hillary would have turned off a lot of people by being her real self, but she also would have had a fan base in a way that
you can't please everybody. That's just the biggest mistake. You have to lean into whatever you are. And I wonder too, if that's something that people are learning now more over time. I don't know. When we think about this, I mean, although it doesn't really apply to Kamala because she's nothing.
She's
not
anything. So she can be anything, right? She can turn into anything. And in that sense, she really is a perfect candidate. She is. And I just think you call it a cack. A lot of people dislike it. A lot of people dislike the laugh.
It feels nervous to me. I just think it feels very, I don't like it. It's unnerving because she's not at ease.
Right. But that's also like, I mean, you really don't want somebody too calm in front of a camera. It's normal to be a little bit
that's another thing. I think, apparently she has this thing where she talks about how she has social anxiety and like she needs to, I don't know if that had to do with having Tim Walz next to her during an interview, but like a lot of her language around like interacting with people, it sounds very like sort of millennial, trauma based. Like I have social anxiety. I can't interact. I have to do everything online. Like I need to go to therapy and I need
she's just saying that because she's saying what everybody around her is saying. That's the kind of talk everyone's talking. So
groove that she's in, and somehow this is going to appeal to the young people because she's being vulnerable about the fact that like she can't go out in public, or she has to go out and then decompress for long periods of time.
Come on, you're a politician. I don't believe
exactly.
That
You're in the wrong job.
Yeah. Why would you do that? And you've done it your whole life. Your whole life, there's been a camera on you. Like, come on.
So,
yeah.
I don't know, but I mean, how are you going to feel if she ends up being the president?
I will not like it, I have to say, because I don't know what she's going to do. A lot of people say that about Trump, but he's actually been president already. Like, why do we pretend like that didn't happen? And that didn't teach us anything?
Because people are blocking it out.
You know, but
they got the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind treatment.
Like the highest office in the land. He actually had an incredible amount of power in a time of national emergency, where he could have done a lot of things that other presidents would not have been able to get away with. And in fact, he ruled like a moderate, more or less.
Mm-hmm. Well, he printed a lot of money.
I don't know why we would. You're right. Well, I don't know. Look, it's COVID time. Well, why would we expect him to be an extremist now?
Because he can get away with it. Well, because why not now? That's the argument.
Think he never but if he really wanted to, I think that, you know, from the perspective of democracy ending, blah, 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 like there's a lot you can do if you really want to overturn democracy the second that you have the reins in your hand, that he in fact did not do.
Because it just doesn't that motivated. I mean, but don't you worry about people in his cabinet? I mean, you know, we were just talking about this earlier. I mean, there's a lot of people who, I mean, even if Trump is not like, you know, in favor of 2025 project stuff, there's going to be people in his circle who are.
Sure. But that's going to be every Republican administration. You can't, what are you going to do? Wipe out the Heritage Foundation? Like it's a prominent conservative think tank.
To them, but he won't stand up.
I think he's the only one that would. I think he's the only one that would. And he did when he said, look, the abortion thing has got to change. It's got to go. It's not going to be.
Well, because it's a losing campaign strategy.
Right. But he said no to them. He said no to them, and he pissed off a lot of social conservatives when he did
president.
That.
What's going to happen when he is president? All bets are off.
Why would he give up if he is a narcissist and he just wants the love of the people? Why would he decide, you know, to become an ideological extremist right in his last, you know, a couple of years in office? If he doesn't really believe in anything, then why would he, what does he have to gain? You know, like the love of a few people in his cabinet. He doesn't care about them. He wants the crowds to love him. I just think that the most likely scenario is the scenario we've already seen. What he already did in 4 years, which was to pretty much be a moderate and nothing too terrifying. With Kamala, I don't know. Kamala is more of a mystery to me in terms of what she's going to do. I don't know. I mean, it would be her first term, so maybe she would be a moderate. Just from that perspective, you will kind of want to be, maybe.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. I have no idea. Nothing about her past makes me feel conclusively that she would definitely be this person or that other person, given that she can take on literally any role.
Yeah.
I just hope that if she wins, the people in power in the Democratic Party are the kinds of moderates that I would agree with.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I'm hoping.
I think we need to really stop pretending that the presidency is any kind of substantive job. I mean, this is not the idea that Elizabeth Warren was ever going to be the president is just so, I mean, it's kind of
real back
adorable,
then.
But like, I mean, I know so many people who just like, they're smarties and they're intellectuals and they love her. And how great would this be to have this brilliant, you know, woman who really cares and she's really all about the issues. She's not going to be president. That's not that job. That job is beneath people like her. Like, she's too smart for the presidency. This is not an intellectual job. I think we have to, like, I always thought Obama was sort of too good for the job. I always thought he should just be on the Supreme Court. The presidency is a job for a performer, for somebody who can represent many things. It is a persona. It's not like somebody who's going to roll their sleeves up.
Smart, but not for an intellectual. And there's a difference.
Right. Yes,
and I think high IQ, non-intellectual is the kind of person. Like Bill Clinton is a good example of, I think, a good politician from that perspective. Somebody who's clearly very intelligent.
I think, and actually Bill Clinton is an intellectual in a lot of ways, but he's also a horse trader, like a genuine politician.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
I think so is Kamala. I think Kamala is a genuine politician.
she could be.
Yeah.
I mean, but so is AOC.
She's turning into one, isn't she?
Watch out.
She's going to be next. She's going to have it. We're going to see her for the next 30 years, 40 years. I mean, she's going to be around forever. I'm sick of it already. I don't know what to do. Her voice is always going to be that high. Does age lower your voice a little bit? I think it does, right?
It sort of weakens it.
She should start smoking.
That's the other thing is like all these older generation people, they all smoked. And so their voices have a little more gravitas.
Husky and they're like sexy or whatever. But she definitely, her voice itself.
You know who's just amazing the way she can present herself is Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can't figure out like what she's actually about, but
Enigma.
Her presentation is like A+. She is a girl to look up to if you're a little girl.
I don't know what to make of her. I just don't know what to make of her.
Yeah.
Every time she shows up on my screen, something's happening. Tulsi's around like, what?
But she's so calm. She is herself. She is not fake.
Yeah.
She just says it. And she looks great.
She looks great.
And her voice is low. So
she seems strong. She actually seems like a strong woman.
Well, she is. She was in the military. She's a surfer.
Military woman.
Yeah.
Athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But she's not Hindu, right? Like she's like a convert or something. She wasn't born that way, maybe.
And I think she was she grew up in some kind of cult, actually.
Oh, okay. Great.
In Hawaii. So other than that, totally normal. I don't know. I don't know what her story is. She has not been
so she's putting her hat in for Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so is RFK.
So is RFK. Right. So I mean, I guess we can all have some kind of fantasy that there's going to be like the heterodox. Maybe he'll just get all like IDW podcast types in his cabinet. And
what's interesting,
Chris Williamson will be like the secretary of the
Democrats.
of the transportation or something. He's not American, but yeah, I think that they should put Eric Weinstein. This is who I should be in the cabinet. Eric Weinstein should probably be, what do you say, secretary of like Health and Human Services or Secretary of State. I mean, he knows a lot about the world, India and stuff. Brett Weinstein should be the head of
Health and Human Services.
Or he should be this like Surgeon General. He should be like Fauci. Just replace Fauci. And who else? Lex Friedman, is he he's not a Nate. Was he born in the US? Or I guess maybe it doesn't matter. For the cabinet positions, you don't have
to be. It's a cabinet position.
No, yeah, exactly. It'd be like Kissinger. Right. Yeah, Lex Friedman should definitely be given a job. Something
Diplomacy,
that requires
something, because he's
talking for really long periods of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never listened to a full episode of his podcast. I've only actually listened to more than like 15 minutes of two of them. And one was the one with Jared Kushner.
Yeah. See, Jared is it Jared or is it Don Jr.? I mean, I think Don Jr. was the one who was a fan of Vance. I mean, what's happening?
Which one is Don? The
not the son-in-law. Well, Jared is married to Yvonne.
Right. I know that. I know who Jared is, but out of the two sons, which is which? There's the brunette. There's the darker hair one, and there's the lighter hair one.
I don't know. Which is Don Jr. I don't know. Don Jr. is the one we hear about more.
Who's the other one? Don't know who
there's
he is.
Barron. Barron is a.
We know who Barron is.
He looks like he's gonna be a big heterodox podcast fan. He's spectrumy. He's intense.
He's a looker. He's like he's a good looking.
He looks like it's
tall,
look at his mom
guy. Yeah. He's got some good genes.
Yeah,
there.
but it seems to me like some of those kids in that generation, Jared, Don Jr., are like fans of the
I'm gonna look this up.
The bro podcaster space, and that's how they ended up. That's how they discovered Vance.
Yeah,
and they're into this stuff, and it's very.
He's the one with the darker hair. That's Don Jr.
Okay. Yeah.
I know that now.
Trying to think who could be I mean, Joe Rogan should really be given some kind of position. I mean, Joe Rogan, I mean, if none of us would be here if it weren't for him. None of them would be.
When was the first time you discovered Joe Rogan?
I didn't like. I never. I don't listen to his show regularly. I mean, I guess 8 or 9 years ago, but I was never very engaged with his content.
There was a period where I was listening somewhat regularly, which is to say, like, every 4th episode, because half of them are like comedians or MMA guys or whatever, like his buds, and I don't give a shit about that. Skip those. And then like a 4th is like intellectuals or interesting people who do interesting things. And there was a time where I was listening. That was years ago though now. So I don't know. I doubt much has changed with Joe. But I remember, I don't know who it was. Like there was somebody who invited me to their podcast, and I was looking this person up, and I saw that they were on the Joe Rogan podcast. And I was like, Joe Rogan has a podcast? Like the Fear Factor guy has a podcast? This is crazy. And then I started kind of sort of listening, and I noticed Sam Harris was there too. And I was like, oh, well, I guess this is a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's got to be a cabinet position for Sam Harris. They really
in the Trump administration,
rivals
in the Trump, yeah.
Maybe
Trump
Kamala. Look, that's the other thing. Is in if Kamala gets in, maybe she'll bring in Sam and
definitely not. Well, see,
rabid all the commentary magazine podcast folks.
Like I see why people gravitate towards the Trump administration, because if you are a heterodox person, this is proof that you are much more likely to be listened to on the right side of the aisle than on the left, which the left will not give you any kind of power or get you anywhere near it. And you can be screaming at them for a long time, like I have been, and we have been, I guess. Anyway, so there was an interesting article about Joe Rogan. Are we done with the debate, though? Are we done with it?
Well,
we never talked about the Haitians.
Oh, well, we're going to get to that at the end. Let's save the best for last.
The Haitians eating cats.
Oh, yeah. Eating cats right in front of the childless cat ladies. That is the cat that they're eating. Yeah.
And they're solving the problem.
Okay, well, yeah. Let's come to that at the end, because there might be something. Jamie, pull that up. We really need a real-time fact checker, because anyway. All right. Well, but we are okay. So speaking of Joe Rogan, there's a piece in The Atlantic that just dropped this morning. We're recording this on September 11th, about Austin, Texas, and how it has become the locus of the heterodoxy or free speech bros, people who have been
the bro side of it, I guess.
Okay. And people who have been run out of blue states, particularly California, so they can be free to express their unwoke views. And the story is framed around Rogan, who of course now does lives there and does his show out of there, and has a comedy club called the Mothership that's very much the locus of a lot of Austin comedians. And it was written by Helen Lewis, who's very, very smart and a great journalist and very stylish writer. And I don't know, how did you you're from Texas, so how did you feel about this?
I mean, it was interesting. There were people, name dropped who I knew. So that's all.
Yeah, two good friends of mine were.
It's always a weird experience. I don't like it. But it makes me feel like I'm missing out on something, actually. Like a party happened, but I was.
Well, who are your friends who were quoted?
Excuse me. I have lots of friends. Why did you say it like that? As
like I can't.
Joe Rogan, my best.
Really?
Friend.
Who are your?
Actually,
Helen Lewis is British, we should say.
What's she doing here?
Well, I mean, she writes for The Atlantic, and she's very much in the sort of mix of this stuff. She co-hosts Blocked and Reported from time to time. She was filling in when Jesse was on book leave, and she does a lot of writing about the culture wars in a pretty nuanced way. But she's still not an American. So it was something a little bit I don't know. It's kind of strange to see a British person trying to understand not only Texas, but Austin.
Yeah, and only like this. So there's only this segment of it, which is this new sort of transplants. But I know a lot of people in Austin. I have family members in Austin. They have never run into this group.
Right.
And they don't know what this is. When I talk about it, they're like, what kind of bubble are you talking? Like, we don't run into people like that. Everybody here is like hyper liberal. Everybody.
Yeah.
So much so that if you talk about trans issues with a critical kind of light and you're in a public space, you have to talk in a hushed voice. You have to sort of look over your shoulder. And
right.
Make sure
well,
that, no one's overhearing. That might be everywhere, but in Austin, it's a concern. Because there are a lot of they thems walking.
You
around.
Get in those blue cities in red states, and people are like extra
Deeply
defensive.
Blue. Yeah. I mean, Austin has always attracted a certain kind of person. The University of Texas is there. The flagship of the system is there, and it's a huge university, so it brings in a lot of people from Dallas and Houston, and some of them stick around
all over the world. I mean,
all over the world. Yeah,
pretty cosmopolitan. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll just read a paragraph. This is from early on in the piece to give people a sense of where this is going. So Joe Rogan now lives in Austin, which has recently become known for its transformation from chilled out live music paradise to a miniature version of the Bay Area, similarly full of tech workers, but with fewer "in this house we believe" signs. Early in the coronavirus pandemic, the Texas Capitol saw the biggest net gain of remote employees of any major city in America. Its downtown is now filled with cranes and new skyscrapers. It is also the center of the Rogan-verse, an intellectual firmament of manosphere influencers, productivity optimizers, stand-ups, and male wellness gurus. Chris Williamson lives in Austin, I believe.
Yeah, he does.
Austin is at the nexus of a Venn diagram of has culture, has gun ranges, has low taxes, has kombucha. The science and technology writer Tim Urban told me that he moved to Austin, told Helen that he moved to Austin from New York City because I would have the experience of talking to someone I respect, some writer friend of mine, or someone who's in a similar kind of career. And I would think, oh, you're in Austin too.
Okay. So some corrections I feel like need to be made. One, it's that this didn't happen yesterday. Austin has been developing heavily for as long as I have been
since
an
the
adult.
90s. Yes.
As long as I have been. And when I was an adult and I first went to Austin, that was the first time I heard people say, it used to be affordable. There used to be like real culture here, and now there's all these people from out of town.
It was a music capital. It was kind of like a little Nashville in the 80s.
15 years ago, people were complaining about how Austin is just so different now, because it has been changing for quite some time. What gave it a certain kind of reputation started shifting, but it's still a real haven for artists. It's just that they can't afford it in the way that they used to. Like, so the affordability really did change. And I visit, as I said, I know people there. My family members there, so I visit. And every couple of years, I will go to some place I recognize or knew, and it's changed radically. Newer bars, new restaurants, like cool, hipper, hangouts than what I knew to be there. Mm-hmm. So it is changing. It is developing. It is not something that the bros did. Okay. They cannot take credit for it. They showed up after it was already happening. Austin was already becoming a place where true musicians and artists found unaffordable, where they were no longer, because it was already unaffordable by the time this tech thing started really happening. And now that it's happening, I mean, it's really deeply it's starting to become uncool, really. Austin.
Well, and I will tell you, as somebody whose number one obsession is not the culture wars, but the housing market, the real estate market is crashing in Austin at the moment, actually. So because all these people who've come in are now leaving, and also so many private equity firms bought Airbnb. Well, first of all, there's a ton of buy up of small houses for Airbnbs. They have way more Airbnbs than they ever needed in Austin. Mm-hmm. So now they're trying to sell them. I mean, Texas is one of these places that had a lot of new development, private investors, and then you've got even outside of Austin, you've got these big new builds, and they're all empty. So it's, and not, this is to say nothing of the commercial real estate market. So the skyscrapers and cranes that she's referring to are in many cases surrounding buildings that are empty. There's nobody in them. I mean, certainly commercial real estate's collapsing everywhere because people aren't going to the office anymore. So that's just kind of across the board. But it's a little bit late.
That's kind of new in the sense that Austin never had much of a skyline, and that's not what Austin was. You know, it was not skyscrapers. So you are somewhat familiar with Austin, or Austin a long time ago.
Long time ago. I lived there when I was a little kid. So
what do you remember?
Well, it was a sleepy. It was a college town. It was kind of hippie town. I mean, so I lived there in the 70s. I was a little kid, and I lived there till I was 9. And, you know, I remember.
Were you born there?
No, I was born in California, but we moved there when I was like 3. I mean, look, I had a Southern accent. I said y'all. My parents were horrified because they were not Texans. But, you know, there was definitely, it was the 70s. So there was a kind of like funky hippie vibe. And, you know, a lot of my babysitters were graduate students, that sort of thing. And, you know, then later when and, you know, it was sort of intellectual, but not wealthy at all. It was kind of scrubby. The tallest building might have even been the belt, you know, the tower.
The tower
at
the
UT.
University of Texas.
Oh yeah, no, there was no there was no skyline. It was not a city at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just remember when we moved, then, you know, tragically, we had to move to suburban New Jersey, and just like utter culture shock because, you know, you're now in a suburban town where there's nobody between the ages of 18 and, you know, 35 living there. It's just all families, kind of bedroom community. So I'm very nostalgic about Austin, and I really associate it with, you know, a better time, certainly for my mother. It was just a very difficult transition.
That would have been a great time to be there. And if you had just grown up there, you would have loved it. Yeah.
They should not have sold their house.
Yep.
Oh yeah. I remember my parents, they bought this really falling apart house in Hyde Park.
Oh wow.
I know. It made it nice.
Nice neighborhood.
Yeah. And we had a little tiny bungalow that we lived in, and we did not have air conditioning for the first couple summers. It's insane. That's the other thing, is like, nobody used to have air conditioning. This is another thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. So yeah, it was just, you know, it was a sultry, hot place. Anyway, but that was a very, very long time ago, and Austin has changed, and
it's changed.
I wouldn't want to.
Way hip, way cool, like, but also like to the point that it's no longer cool. You know, now it's like coasting on a reputation that cannot actually materialize.
It's coasting on hipster fumes.
Yeah. Those people are gone, and they really can't afford it. And I remember, like, I knew some of those people who were like wannabe artists who gravitated to Austin for that scene, and then they would move further and further out until they were just, you know, they were just gone. And now it's a bunch of tech workers, and it's a different place. It's still fairly cool from a perspective of a tech worker. You know, if you're that kind of person, there's a lot of amazing places to eat, a lot of wonderful coffee shops. If that's your thing, right? Like, and some people really, really want that and desire that. And actually, I've decided that I'm the kind of person who needs that. Like, I need to live in a red state, but, you know, in a local community that's full of like they thems, you know what I mean? Because I need a certain quality
because you
coffee.
Want a level of coffee.
I need blue culture.
I don't want any barista serving me anything who has anything but a they them pronoun.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it should be a qualification. Like, I mean, if you don't,
she, her, terrible coffee maker. He, him, don't even think about it. Yeah. I think it might drive you a little bit crazy though, Austin. It's I don't know.
It's very slow.
Not anymore. I mean, I've been back there. I mean, almost every year for the last several years, and it just feels like a lot of traffic. It's overwhelming. You can't park anywhere.
Well, it's not built for that. That's the other thing. Right. Is that Austin was a small town, and then it grew really fast.
Yeah.
And so you have these like awkward intersections that were like expanded recently, you know, and now they have like 7 points or whatever, like 7 roads at the same time, or bizarre kind of turns that sucks, you know, and I'm sure it must be terrible if you were an Austinite to see that and see that transition. But I bet it is still a pretty cool place to be for non-cool people like us. If we were actual artists, no, I don't think you'd want to be there. But I think she's pointing to a real thing that this kind of bro guy discovered Austin like 5 years ago, was like, oh, Austin's a place.
Yeah.
It's a place. It's Texas, no tax. Like, that's great.
Right.
But they also, I mean, as she pointed out, they want kombucha. Like, they want, you know, they want the immersion tank, whatever, and only a certain kind of place can accommodate that. And Austin's one of the few cities that can. And the great part of it is that it's in Texas. So they're limited in how insane they can be.
Yeah. I mean, you wonder how often these people hang out together, though. Like, I can't really imagine, like, you know, Lex Friedman and Chris Williamson and Joe Rogan and, you know, all
throwing out all the time,
getting together. Yeah. Or, you know, and there's a lot of people who were not in this story who I'm kind of surprised were not. And I suspect that a lot of people just didn't want to talk to her for this piece.
And again, most of Austin is super lefty and not these guys. Like, I think it's just this is the corner of Austin that we're paying a lot of attention to because of who we are, and we know these people. But I think an average Austinite, you find a guy on the street, you're like, have you ever heard of this guy? Like, it's Chris Williamson, whatever. He's gonna be like, no, what?
Right.
You know?
Well, why do you think that the University of Austin is in Austin?
Well, didn't they specifically say if it's good enough for?
That's a weird
Elon Musk and
that's a weird frame.
But I think there was a sense of, like, a few power players recognized that this was a cool place to be, decided to move there and felt comfortable there. And, you know, because it's this mix of cosmopolitanism and also red state laws and, like, broader cultural landscape, which I think really appealed to a certain kind of person. But you know, in Texas, like, you kind of think of Austin as like the oddball, you know, like weirdo little place.
Keep Austin weird.
Right, but
everywhere.
It's not Texas, and that's the other thing that kind of makes me laugh is when somebody moves to Austin and they're from, like, California or whatever, and they'll be like, "No, I'm Texas,"
and they're wearing cowboy boots.
Like, you're not in Texas. You're in Austin. It's I mean, you are, but you're not. You are or you're not. You know, you're in kind of a place where you're in Texas, but there are a lot of exceptions to Texas rules that, you know, Austin can accommodate, but other places cannot. So,
yeah. Well, but now, it is. Maybe you should move there now.
This makes me want to move.
The real estate market is going down and might be affordable. And, this is the time. Get a bargain.
It makes me, it makes me think, like, I'll, you know, meet like-minded people, and that would be cool, or a few, like, you know, all five of them. And I do miss Texas, I have to say.
Oh.
I do. Yeah, I miss Texas. I miss just, like, how, like, widely spaced everything was. And every time I go back, I'm like, whoa, like, I get this little sense of, like, suddenly my horizons, like, shifts, you know, my eye has to, like, adjust to, like, how far apart everything is.
Yeah.
And I think I like it.
I like the flat prairie kind of landscape. I mean, Austin is hill country, so it's not quite like that, but
hill I mean, it's not real hill country. I mean, hills for Texas, which is to say not hills, you know,
like, but it's not like the Panhandle or something. It's obviously
right, but it's still landscape. Pretty.
It's pretty.
It's just hilly for Texas, which is to say, like, a normal place, I guess.
Yeah, but no, it's beautiful.
Why don't you move?
It's too hot. And
really,
I you know what, I perversely I like California. I know it's despite everything. I like California.
It's, like, unaffordable, and everything's falling apart.
I know. Well, hopefully
you would find so many people to interview in Austin. You would just have to go to, like,
I would actually have the only podcasters that have studios now where they have in-person interviews because they live, like, is it Bridget Fedesi is interviewing a lot of people in studio. She's in Austin now. Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at that! There are all these.
I think she's public about that, but
we can just bleep it out.
No, I think
we can just bleep out her name.
Yeah, no, what was I going to say? Oh, we're doing an Unspeakeasy retreat in Dripping Springs, Texas, which is about 20 miles outside of Austin, next March. So,
okay, well, that's
and
just, like,
Dripping Springs is where all the wellness influencers live. The Dripping Springs is like a town that was built for your Instagram shoot. Like everything is, to be like an old antique tractor next to everything looks like a stock photo image. Yeah.
I think, this was an interesting profile. So this is, again, we're not really fully discussing.
No, we're not.
We're just sort of used it to jump off. But what did you think about the way Helen painted Joe Rogan? Like, did you feel like this was an accurate portrayal, given even just what you know from listening to him?
What, that he's just kind of like fast and loose with this frustrates me about him. Like, just having conversations, the Alex
literally
Jones
he is, though,
stuff.
right?
I know. I'm really agnostic on him. I just don't, I don't know.
I think that the heterodox world, and by that I'm including like a broad group of people, not just like the people listed here and the people we would think about, but just this broader group of people who are not fully in line with whatever, leftist orthodoxy happens to be at the moment, owe a lot to Joe Rogan, even if they don't know it, and even if he's like, 7, 10, 15 degrees of separation away from them, he has actually created a kind of thirst for their ideas. And he has, broadened up the average guy's mind in a way that, given him a kind of a cultural outlet that he would not get anywhere else,
Right. But that comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility. And,
but if you
talking
take
to
it
Alex
that way,
Jones is,
if you take it with that kind of seriousness, that's the same thing as being paralyzed. And I think a lot of people feel like where they are in the responsibility, like to intellectual honesty, playfulness spectrum, that they are in the exact right place. But I think that we should have wide variance, and he might be at a place that's not comforting to me or comfortable to me, but I'm not sure if that means that where he's at and the way that he's speaking and the people that he's speaking to necessarily creates like a harmful cultural product. I think he's having an overall positive cultural effect, much more positive than a lot of people who discuss him all the time and criticize him all the time. Would you say that's true, or are you just?
Well, I'm thinking about this. It's like it's sort of what is a harm? What is a cultural harm? I mean, we could say, like anything should be written if it's, even if it causes people to have bad thoughts or make decisions that are destructive to, civilization on some level. This expression should be allowed to exist. I don't know. I mean, I guess Alex Jones, I find so repugnant and of no redeeming value that I
don't think he's converting people to Alex Jones, though. Like, I don't think he's normalizing Alex Jones, which I think is the fear of the people who are, but I don't.
Him?
He talks to so many crazy people. Like his friends, his comedian friends are all insane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they talk in this bizarre way, and they make these like gross, like vulgar jokes. Like, I see Alex Jones as being not entirely different from that kind of camp of like kind of rough, like.
But Alex Jones was presenting himself in a sort of quasi news, news feed fashion and telling people. I mean, it's just the Sandy Hook thing is just so horrific and disgusting that there's just no rationalizing it. I just don't.
I completely agree with you, but I also think that we should give his listeners a little bit more credit, because I think they understand who Joe is and they understand the attitude that he brings. And I don't think that they are, thinking, oh, this guy came on the Joe Rogan podcast now this is my new
Yeah.
guru, this is my new. I don't think they approach it that
Right. I
because
guess it's a little bit okay. So what if? Okay, I see what you're saying. So
there's a
if
huge variety in
right,
who
and
who does platform.
if we didn't know who Alex Jones was, and then he came on Joe Rogan and started spouting this nonsense about Sandy Hook, that would be a harm. I think we can agree on that.
Well,
But
I mean, it depends. I mean, if it goes without. I don't even know. Did he do that on Joe Rogan podcast?
no,
Did
but
he come and talk
no.
about
By
that?
the time he went on Joe, I don't remember, but Joe sort of walked him through it, got him to walk it back a lot. But I mean, no, Alex Jones was doing that on his own show. I mean, he just seems he's unhinged. He's addicted to attention, whatever. It just seems like he's an adrenaline junkie, and he's getting adrenaline from like just getting people completely worked up. I mean, it's kind of Trumpian in its own way, but I don't know. But it's like you're gonna put people. I don't. But it's
that next to the probably hundreds of different voices that he has platformed who were interesting and
no, I get
unique and had like a different perspective, and many of whom were on the left or are on the left.
Yeah,
right.
I
mean, I just feel as if it's easy with somebody who produces the amount of content that he produces and who is as intellectually curious as he is. And this is something that I felt like Helen didn't give him enough credit for. That he might be, not as like high IQ as, her or like a true intellectual, but he is a deeply intellectually curious person. And that's an admirable quality and trait. That means necessarily that he will engage ideas that some of us are immediately recognize as being ridiculous. Yeah. So there's, I don't know, almost a snobbiness that I sense every time Joe Rogan comes into the picture. I sense a bit of like, well, he's a like stupid little meathead.
The elites don't like him at all. I mean, it's so hard to know how to kind of like metabolize this. You know who's another interesting figure who's down in Austin is this guy JP Sears. Do you know who he is? So he is a YouTuber, and he used to make these videos. He was kind of like a life coach and also like very into wellness and fitness. But also he was this like incredible comedian, and he would do this like satire. So he had like two modes. Some of his videos were like very genuine, like, how to live your life stuff and how to have nutrition. And then he would have these videos that were like extremely dry, tongue in cheek, like, this is why you should do ayahuasca. Like, this is what the world sees on the outside when you're doing ayahuasca, and it's so amazing. And then he cuts to himself like vomiting on the porch and like falling, whatever. It was very, very, very funny. And this was probably 2014 or so. I was obsessed with, I was about to say JD Vance, JP Sears. And I was going to pitch a profile of him to the New Yorker because I thought he was really wise. He would talk about how to make these life decisions. I remember he had one, I think you would appreciate this. He had one about like whether or not you should have kids. And he was like, these are the arguments for having kids. These are the arguments for not. And like, it was very much like synthesis, and he was very thoughtful. He ended up having a child. And in the 10 years since, he's gone total conspiracy rabbit hole. He is into the most like nonsense. The government is, I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it's pretty hardcore conspiracy bananas, not very like, just nothing really there as far as I can see. I'm sure his fans are going to come after me, but he moved to Austin during this time. so like, it's just a shame because I really feel like there's a lot of, I mean, the Weinsteins too, like Brett and Heather like really had a lot to offer and still do. I mean, I think most of the Dark Horse podcast, I think most of their episodes are about like obscure things in like nature, like some snail or something. Like, great. But it's just a shame that these really interesting minds sort of just allowed themselves to spin off into this direction that just makes them not trustworthy.
Yeah. And I think there's something to that idea of trust. And I think that gets a little bit to the heart of why people like Joe Rogan so much, which is not to say that they think he's a subject matter expert in anything or necessarily all that qualified, like, or even intelligent. Like Sam Harris can be like a generalist, can parse a new idea in an interesting way the second he hears it. You don't necessarily think that about Joe Rogan, but I don't think that that's what they're finding in him. You know, I think they trust him to be honest. They trust him to be transparent.
Transparent about what? His own, but
his own views,
he doesn't really
his
know
own
what
thinking
his
process.
views are a lot. Like a lot of it's like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't know. I have to think about that. I don't know. There's a lot of that.
I think he just actually is somebody who, in the moment that a new idea is presented to him, his brain just gets like actually is thinking about it, and then he gets trapped there. But I think he does have his own perspective and viewpoint. But that's not why people aren't listening to him for his viewpoint.
Right. I guess, you know what it is, now that I'm thinking about this, Joe Rogan is like a human YouTube. Like, it's just everything. There's so much content. Like, obviously on a very small scale, but it's like this and this and this and this and this. And just like,
I think that people trust Joe Rogan.
But he's like a human algorithm. Yeah. It's like the algorithm is going to show you this and this and this and this. And some of it's going to be like legitimate and useful. And some of it is going to be garbage. And it's all mixed up. Like, he is like doing the algorithmic work for his audience. I mean, that is what curation is. He is a curator of all these ideas and these people. But this is the problem with this economy, is it's impossible to impose quality control on yourself if you have to continue to make a living doing this. I mean, obviously he makes more than a living, but I don't know.
I think he has a quality. I think he passes his own quality test. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I think he does. But so it would have to be somebody else imposing a quality test on him.
Yeah.
And that's the point at which I get uncomfortable.
But I mean, I just like Sam Harris. I mean, say what you will about him. I know he has more critics than he used to, but like, I don't doubt he's not going to put anyone on the show that is like a complete idiot. Like, that's just not going to happen.
I mean, it could happen,
but
it
like
has happened, but
extremely
also, not
rarely
idiot. Yeah, but
no.
I just feel two ways about it, which is there's the underlying assumption that the audience themselves are so stupid that they already need a bunch of curation before they get exposed to an idea. Otherwise, that's it, and that it is not sufficient to just, allow them to hear this idea and then also a rebuttal somewhere else. Like that's not going to work.
How do we know that where they're going to go to get the rebuttal? I mean, this is going to stop there.
You can come up with avenues. You can find ways to get people like Joe Rogan interested in what you have to say. No. And he does bring on people who disagree with him. I just don't think that that's there's a sense that we have to control the what people are watching, and we have to do it, otherwise it'll get just spiral like out of control.
Yeah, no,
completely crazy. And that's been I think that actually that idea is the problem. Like that way of viewing things is in itself problematic, and something that too many of the very smart and interesting people on the left have actually just accepted. And they intuitively work with this conception. And that's why they're, they have a certain feeling about what social media should do and the kind of place it should have in American life. I think they're just, that they are not just running against a tide, but they are making themselves seem like not credible simply by saying that that's what they think should happen.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, they're losing their credibility. Like we're not disagreeing on this. You asked me what I think about Joe Rogan. These are my reservations. I think he has the right to exist and to broadcast 100%, 100%, as he would say. Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. Totally. I just don't. Alex Jones, I just have no.
Yeah.
I find
utterly
uncharming, and
I agree with that. Yeah. I actually heard him on the Red Scare podcast, not on Joe Rogan.
Well, I mean, the Red Scare girls are like posing for pictures with Alex Jones and stuff like that, which that's to me is it's not cute. So,
yeah, they're edgy.
Yeah,
they're very edgy. I mean, I think that Joe's value to me is that, or what I see as being the value he provides to his listeners is not that he's an authority, but that he's authentic, and I don't think that they see that he's platforming somebody like Alex Jones and think this is definitely a good guy. I think they are not taking his word as gospel. You know what I mean?
No.
No?
No, I agree. I agree. Although,
like, think about Howard Stern back in the day.
mhm.
Like, he would have a bunch of weirdos and like literal porn stars,
but he wouldn't have people. They weren't supposed to be experts. It was an entertainment.
Neither they
thing.
are. That's not necessarily the case with Joe Rogan. I mean, he's just a little bit more intellectual than Howard Stern. But you can imagine
Howard Stern was not stupid. But Howard Stern would not have somebody on there talking about vaccines. Howard Stern would have a stripper on. I mean, that was the joke. He had a stripper on the radio, which was like hilarious because you couldn't see her.
Yeah,
it was funny. But he would have like celebrities and actors and musicians and stuff just talking about stuff. He would not bring on a doctor or a scientist or somebody like that. That would not.
But is that because he didn't think that was his lane, or because he just wasn't interested in that?
I mean, it was just not. I mean, it wasn't done at the time, and I'm sure that he wouldn't. I mean, I don't know, but my guess is that he would say like, well, I don't know. And it's like, this is not that kind of show. Like, it's only now in this podcast universe that like it's a true variety show. I mean, like this idea of what is a variety show, like, you would have like the Dinah Shore show and somebody would come on and like there would be an actor and then there would be some other interesting person, or like the Tonight Show. I mean, all the old talk shows back in the day, you would have sometimes writers. It was usually like Hollywood celebrities, but you would not have on some who is going to talk to you about what we're learning about X. Like, it's not like when the warnings came out about cigarette smoking in the 70s, or that somehow suddenly like the Surgeon General was on Johnny Carson. I mean, maybe he was. Well, in that case, maybe he was, but it wasn't. I think everybody sort of knew their lane and had some epistemic humility. And now everyone just thinks that they can be an expert about anything.
Right. They do. And it's a problem, but it's a problem that has a cause that is also completely understandable, in the sense that I don't trust the experts. Like if I lose
none.
I mean, the experts, quote unquote, scare quotes, experts. Experts say XYZ. Okay. Well, it used to mean something. Now it means less than it did before, because in my mind, I'm always thinking that everybody has a political agenda. They're bringing a political agenda to the table, and they're being influenced by this political agenda. If I could again conceive of quote unquote experts as unbiased, then things would change. I want there to be experts. I want there to be expertise. I want there to be people I can trust. I feel like this kind of chaotic Wild West podcast space is not healthy. It is not sustainable, from a civilization, from a discourse perspective. We don't want to be here any longer than we need to be. We need to build something else. But experts lost the trust of the people. The people didn't just decide, oh, I'm not going to pay attention, I'm stupid, and I'm going to listen to this crank instead. There were good reasons to mistrust them.
I agree.
I don't know if that lesson has been learned at all. I think the exact wrong lesson has been learned from all this, which is we need to control the message even more. We need to control what they can see so that they only listen to us, only hear us, which is not how trust is built, right? Joe Rogan has a lot of trust. And I think that's interesting. It's interesting that this guy, who's obviously not highly educated, he doesn't talk the way that you expect him to talk, and yet he has a lot of trust from his listeners and his viewers. And I think we should stop and take a moment, think about why that is, and what are the lessons that media institutions can learn from all this.
I mean, I guess if you throw enough spaghetti to the wall, some of it'll stick. I mean, that's the thing, is just like the volume of content And the amount of time that people, sit there talking about this stuff, it was never that way before. You would put somebody on TV for 6 minutes. So, and instead you've got 6 hours with Lex Friedman. I mean, I don't know. But I agree with you. What they did to Jay Bhattacharya was unconscionable. I mean, all these COVID doctors, very legitimate people that were just sidelined. There's going to be a great deal of damage done from that. But I don't know. But
you pick the political topic, and I'll tell you, how it contorts, the various experts into talking about certain facts or ignoring them or pretending like they don't exist or what have you. And that it just happens you see that happening in enough subjects, and you get this vague sense of mistrust, which is what's happened to me. Like, I started off with okay, I don't trust what anybody has to say when it comes to Islam, because this is something I know a lot about. And I know that a lot of people who talk about this issue publicly have a political agenda. I know that because I talk to them. I talk to them afterwards. Why did you say this? And you didn't bring up this. And they tell me why. Or they come up to me and say, you need to shut up because it's irresponsible of you to say such and such, because then people will think this, and then this will help the right or whatever. Right. I know that. I know it for a fact that they are manipulating what their message is based on what they anticipate the political reaction to be, or cultural reaction to be. I knew that in that field. I know that for a fact when it comes to that particular issue. And then it just became, I saw that there. Then you see it in gender. Then you see it in such and such and such and such. And over time, what builds is this like callous, of like, I hear that an expert said this. That means something. It doesn't mean nothing. It means something. But I'm not going to take it as seriously as I would have, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And that's a terrible thing.
What the legitimacy crisis is. No, I mean, we're all losing our minds all the time. Well, speaking of which, so I guess came up at the debate last night that Haitian migrants are eating cats in Ohio.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is to be expected. What do you expect? You know what? You let people in. This is, duh. Okay. Like, we couldn't have seen this coming.
Yeah.
They're eating cats. They're eating dogs. So.
I think it's cats specifically.
So is the idea that I think, well, I don't follow animal stories because I get too upset, but I think it might have just been, I think this might be apocryphal, and that might be one crazy woman who's not Haitian who was reporting this. But I guess the idea is that it's part of their culture to sacrifice animals and eat them. And if whatever's closest his hand, if there's not a chicken, it's somebody's cat.
Yeah. So I'm of many minds about this. So Trump brought it up in the debate, just like threw it out there.
Yeah, it's a great.
My God,
he should just run on this.
I mean, it really was a bad debate performance for him. Like, he didn't do anything. He didn't convince. I mean, maybe it wasn't a catastrophic loss, because I think this is the kind of debate that didn't really change anybody's minds. Mm-hmm. People watch debates to confirm what they already feel.
Yes, it's great for the confirmation bias crowd.
It's good to watch it as, like, a Democrat, and then you see Kamala doing well, and then you think, okay, well, she's not as idiotic as everyone's saying, and she actually sounds competent. She sounds presidential. Meanwhile, Trump sounds like an idiot, and so, or just crazy, kind of, like scattered, ranting old man.
Yeah.
And he threw out the eating people's pets in Springfield.
Also post-birth abortion, I think. Was that also on there?
Yeah, there was
aborting babies when they're 9 years old. Yeah.
I don't know if I don't know what they
should be able to abort all the way up to college.
He was like, even after, like, he said that this is what they want, and then they weirdly, like, they want to be able to, something like that. And then the moderator had this kind of hilarious little, there's no state in which this is legal, which was funny, but also that's not what he said technically. Having said that, I heard from my more conservative, like, friends, they were saying that they felt that the moderators were biased
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people.
A lot of them said that, but that's also like loser talk, isn't it? You know, like there could be a truth to it. I think there probably is a truth to it. Having said that, even if there was no bias, he would have still lost.
Yeah, I mean,
because she was goading him. She was doing it, you know, effectively.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, but I mean, what do you have to add to this? Do Muslims like eat cats or anything, or do you have any?
This is a Muslim problem.
No,
like,
I know. I'm just trying to bring everything
yeah.
together. Okay,
Muslims can eat like 5 things. Like it's terrible. Like the dietary restrictions, man. I mean, they're severe.
Yeah.
And I had a hamburger for the first time in my life when I was like 19.
Oh my God! Did you
because
just like?
You know what? I just because it's not halal. I didn't have a halal one. Actually, my parents they followed a more restrictive form of dietary restrictions, whatever. Some Pakistanis do, where you actually have to slaughter the animal in a specific way. So not only can it not be like pork, there are certain things that are off limits, certain meats that are always off limits. You also have to kill it in a very particular way. Oh. And if you don't kill it in a very particular way, and the person who's killing it, by the way, the person who's slaughtering the animal has to be a person of the book, which is to say a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew. If it's a pagan, then this meat is now
so nobody who actually works in a slaughterhouse.
Exactly.
Or, there's no Jews Texas, working in a slaughterhouse.
Right, but it's Texas, so it's Mexicans and they're probably Christians. So it was all right. But so what was interesting about the Haitian cat thing, I think it's one of those things where in the short run, it's a loser. Like it's definitely a huge point against him. It makes him sound completely crazy, especially if you don't know anything about it. And he just says it out of nowhere. You're like, what? Like, this guy's crazy. But if I was like a Democratic strategist, I would think about the effect that this will have in like the long term. And the reason I think this is because of something JD Vance said on Twitter. I don't know if you saw his tweet about it, but he also gave like a couple of like he showed up on a like I think it was CNN or something like that, and talked about that specific comment. And what he said is like, we have to do this. We have to create this, like there has to be this crazy meme in order to get you to pay attention to the problem. Like that we're actually wanting you to talk about.
We have to shock you into
doing it. And it made me think that, that actually is exactly what happened to me in that moment when I was looking that up, because I'd never heard of it before. Well, this is not when Trump said it. This was in the news cycle, the Twitter cycle for like, at least like 24 hours ahead of time. So I was seeing it. But when I first ran across it, I was like, what is this? And I just Googled Haitians, Springfield. And, I came up with, I think this was a Reuters story or something, but it was one of the kind of a debunking style article where it's been claimed that such and such, but it hasn't. Like that's crazy. Like the authorities say nothing like this happened. And then they kind of give the background of, anywhere from, I read different stories, 12,000 to 20,000 Haitians coming into a town that is max 60,000 over the course of a couple of years. That's the lead, actually. And the cat eating thing led you to read it. And for you to know, a random person to read about it, I would have never heard of this town. It would have never crossed my timeline had it not been for the debunking. The all crazy thing is this is not true. Look at how not true this is. In Springfield, there's only and then you're like, why is anybody talking about Haitians in Springfield in the first place? It occurs to you, and then you find out why, and then you read about like this kind of a crisis that they're having. And of course, now that crisis is complex. They're like all immigrants, I'm sure they bring a lot of good to that local economy. And there have been some, like, there was a PBS NewsHour little clip about it. It was pretty interesting. And it talked to a factory worker in Springfield. And they talked about how, now I have new workers, like 10% of my workforce is Haitian, and they are, not on drugs, and they show up on time. And that's great. Like, different from around here, I guess. But he seemed happy with them. There was the a minister or something, like some church guy, and he was like, my church was dying, there's no young people, and now we have new arrivals, we have younger people, and they're Haitian,
Oh,
you know.
okay.
And so that was like the PBS kind of spin on it, but it probably is a complicated story,
Yeah.
but the progressives, liberals are on the back foot. You know what I mean? They have to say, oh, look, no, it's actually more complicated than that. It's not that they're just driving around without licenses and killing, 11-year-olds and taking up all the like social services money and like, crippling your local economy. It's not just that.
So it's forcing them into it is a version of Kathy Newman. So what you're saying is, and then you're forced to then engage them and take hours explaining what you are saying.
I think it was bait, and it was bait, and it led me to go down this path and to learn about this freaking town, the specific challenges of this town. And they are severe. I mean, so at the very least, like a sixth of the population, that's the lowest lowballing figure, but it might be as much as a third of the population of the city. It's like that amount of people just came in over the course of 3 years that are
how are they living?
Completely different culture.
Where are they living? How are they paying rent? And they're being subsidized. And
they're being. It's public.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to read this piece.
So there are all these like citizen journalists who are right-wing citizen journalists who are recording who are there in Springfield on the ground. They're like talking to people.
Andy No should really have a major cabinet position in the Trump administration.
Yes,
that's
actually he's deserved it. He's been doing that work for free for a long time.
Yeah.
But there were all these like interesting little like videos about it. Of course, very some guy, some random YouTuber, and who knows what his agenda is, who knows what he's leaving out. But there's all these Springfield residents. They look very blue collar. They talk about how rent has soared, in the city, and they can't like it, and people are taking up the public services, like wealth, like kind of welfare oriented agencies. Like they'll have like lines, and like the line will be like 80% Haitian, and they feel like basically they're being robbed of something that belongs to them, and being priced out of their own communities. And then animals are disappearing. That's the other thing. Oh animals are disappearing. Which may or may not be true. But again, I think that's bait. I think to focus on the cat thing is to miss the real effect of this, which is now people are aware of this kind of crazy situation that this town is in, and they're blaming it on Kamala, even if she has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. That's another story. That's for some investigative journalists to find out. My point is the connection has been made in some people's minds. And so it's one of those lose the battle, win the war kind of a situation. And I think that if I was a Democratic strategist, now I know they don't listen to me, but maybe they should. And next time, don't take the bait.
Right. I think the guy, do we think maybe that they're like killing geese or something like that? Like it's not necessarily pets. I think maybe it's split the difference here. It's not pets. It's, your local wildlife.
Yeah, and geese are pretty terrible.
Oh, they're assholes.
Who's to say that the goose didn't deserve it? Who's to say that that's really not a public service?
They should kill possums and rats
and geese.
Geese.
What are the pit bulls of birds? Honestly, I feel like people don't. There's
Sarah,
not enough.
Don't start with the pit bulls. It's too late in this episode to get into that. Please.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I do want to say to wrap this up. There's something I did want to mention. Speaking of a goose. And this is not just a personal story. This is something I want to say. So last week I had a sad day because the dog that my ex-husband has had primary custody of for the last many years was an older dog, not Hugo, but the same breed as Hugo, a Newfoundland. We had to last week put down. We had to say goodbye to Goose. The dog was named Goose, and he was a absolutely magnificent beast. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that we did something that I've done before, actually, but I cannot recommend highly enough. We had the vet come to the house, come to my ex-husband's house, and put him down that way. And all I can say is, if you can, euthanize your pet before it starts really suffering, you should really, really do that. people wait much, much, much too long. And, it's interesting. The vet who came, she's a lovely person. I cannot imagine having this job. Your job is to go around all day into people's homes and euthanize their pets. And you've got people crying.
And then they
every
take
single
the pet?
Yeah, they take it. I've done this before. When my dog Rex, we had the same thing. She was talking about how people just they wait too long, and it's this incredible gift that we can give animals that we cannot give our fellow humans to help them die as comfortably as possible. And I just see so many people waiting too long to put their pets down, and it's out of selfishness, or they have this idea that like my dog's got some fight in him. And it's really a beautiful thing to be able to do this. And she was talking even about like having like pet palliative care services, and just sort of reframing the way we think about our companion animals, because it's really part of being a responsible pet owner is knowing when it's time to say goodbye to them, and doing it humanely. So as it was a very, very sad day, and
sorry.
all of that. But I just wanted to say that because I really want people to think differently about this, and realize that is an option. So, So
are you against, like surgeries for pets? There are people who will do that.
Well, no, if they're going to get better. I'm against, look, I actually just interviewed somebody for The Unspeakable. It hasn't posted yet, about veterinary care and why vet bills are so high and everything. The medical technology around animal medicine has just like increased. Just like in human medicine. There's so many treatments available, and it's incredibly expensive. I'm against putting an old pet through surgery when it's like gonna die soon anyway. That is just cruel. Like they're in pain. No, look, if they can be rehabilitated.
What about like a surgery for like cancers or something? Do they have that? Like
they do. A lot of people put their pets on chemotherapy, and I used to be totally against it. But apparently there are forms of it that they really don't have that many side effects, and you can buy them some time, and it doesn't really affect the pet that much. So I will revise that. But no, I have been, as our listeners know, I'm pro death, pro euthanasia. And I just, it does make you realize that this is something that we are able to do for our pets that we can't do for other people. It's just, having watched both of my parents die, it's just unbelievable that we're able to do this for an animal that we can't do for a person. So anyway, I would encourage people to think responsibly. Think responsibly, and then drink responsibly after you've euthanized your pet.
Yeah.
Hit the bar.
I'm drinking on behalf.
Yes, thank you. Anyway, so that was, the memory of Goose, the Newfoundland, had his own Instagram page.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't do it. I did.
Okay. I am Facebook
my ex-husband did
like
a beautiful job with him.
Unbelievable. I'm Facebook friends with many dogs.
I can't. This is why I can't go on Facebook anymore, because every time I go on, someone's dog has died.
Oh no!
That's why I can't.
And then
go
it
on.
turned into a memorial page. Oh,
yes.
No.
Oh, I cry every time.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah. Okay.
So, but if you want to go on Instagram and look up Goose the Newfoundland, that would probably be the one.
Did you give him like your last name or his last name?
He used to have my last name, and then when my ex-husband took over,
changed his name.
He has his name.
Oh my god!
No. God damn it! Yes. But yeah, I'm glad I was able to be there for it. So
that's nice. Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, please rate and review. By the way, The Unspeakable is now on video, so it has a YouTube channel. Everybody,
you should get a glam squad so you can, always be ready for, like have like a team come in.
Well, look, I have to. The amount that I'm now recording between this show and the other, I should just have somebody live here.
Yeah,
does makeup. Just follow me around with a makeup Yeah, I know. It's really painful. But anyway, the Unspeakable YouTube channel, please go over there. I'm loading up. You can binge Moon Unit Zappa interview up there. Do you know who Frank Zappa is?
Sounds very familiar. Sounds like something I should know about.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, anyway.
Musician
so if you,
of some kind.
he was a musician. All right. So yeah, if you like this show, but you would like a version without Sarah, you can go watch that.
There's like that's a great way to sell it, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, that's it.
Yeah,
that's what I need.
That's our new merch.
All right.
No, it's just Sarah with a line.
Megan without, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
You have reached the end of the episode, which probably means you like our content. Why don't you join our Substack right now? You can become a paying subscriber at aspecialplace.substack.com. You can join our listener community, leave comments, interact with everybody. We'll see you in there. It is totally worth it. So please join us, aspecialplace.substack.com. And thanks for listening.